Hello.
Adrian,
How's it going, sir?
how you doing?
Doing well. There
There you
you are.
are.
How are you, sir?
Good, good.
Working hard? How was the
Yeah, this
shift today?
relocation's it's starting to pick up, so that's good.
Good, good, good. I like all the stuff behind you, man.
Oh, oh yeah, all the bikes and stuff. Yeah.
So this is gonna be for the film office because we're doing some. I do the newsletter for the film office, so
Okay.
it's gonna kind of be a spotlight on you and the work you do,
Okay, cool.
stuff like that. And then some social stuff because we want to promote Ransom Canyon too, like
Yeah.
so I mean, just at the beginning, when did you start in the film industry?
Oh man. I started back in I think it was 2003. I started doing some playback for a little indie film called Three Wise Guys. I think it was 2003. It was Judd Nelson and Roseanne Barr's ex-husband. What's his name?
Oh, Tom Arnold.
Tom Arnold. Yeah. And it was a really low budget little like Christmas thing, the three wise guys, it's supposed to be like the
Hmm.
three wise men. It was it was really pretty low budget and kind of funny. But yeah, it was the first thing I did.
And I guess what made you want to jump into the industry in general?
I went to school for it. I had
Okay.
a demo recording deal with a band that I was in the probably early 90s, and I had gone to LA for a couple of years and started working in a recording studio, started doing graphic design there, and learned to do like some early video production. And it just kind of seemed like that's where I was going to make the money. The recording contract didn't go anywhere, the band didn't go anywhere. So I
Hmm.
decided, I'm going to stick with this whole graphic design video production thing. And it kind of worked out. I moved back to Albuquerque, went to UNM and finished my degree. And it just happened that the industry was starting to pick up at that time. So I kind of was able to start working my way into the industry.
Hmm. And what do you enjoy most about it?
Actually, there's a couple of things. Obviously, the creativity, right? Like that is,
Hmm.
you never get that much free reign and creative, uh, you know, um, freedom when you're working for like an ad agency or something. So the freedom there is incredible. But also, I have a really short attention span. I'm kind of like very ADHD, and it's nice to be able to work on a project and then it's over, and then you get to go on to something else and do something completely different. And throughout pretty much my whole career, I've been able to just run the gamut of westerns to sci-fi to crime dramas. So it's been nice to be able to have just change all the time.
Hmm. And what was your role on Ransom Canyon? What were you
Ransom
doing for?
Canyon, I was the production illustrator and lead graphic designer.
Okay. And so with that, I guess what exactly do you do then for people who don't know?
For people who
Yeah.
don't, yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's trying to create the visual aspect of the world that we're living in the film or the TV show, right? So you have to sell it. You have to. One of the big things I worked on this season was the big music festival. So there's a big music festival that happens in the show, and all of the, booths and T-shirts and banners and all of that stuff was like something I started working on first day that we went into production for season two, and I had to just come up with all of the look for the music festival. Whether it was the hats and the T-shirts and all the brand. Um, so that was pretty much my role this season, was focusing on all the graphics for that and some of the locations. But also, there's an element of some artistic design where one of the characters is drawing some characters, and it was really cool because I got to work on that. I got to like illustrate some stuff which became part of the show's storyline. So this season was like so cool. There was so much going on that I got to work on.
I've seen they got some pretty good acts to be in that music festival.
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, what?
yeah. There was actually, I probably can't talk about it, but there were some
Yeah.
really big acts that were supposed to be a part of it that we couldn't land, but it would
Mhm.
have really blown some people away. But we still got some really cool names on there.
Yeah, they're still big to me. You
Yeah,
know, they're still they're still big. They're still big.
yeah.
And and how long, I guess, how long was production for you for? How long were you in production for?
I was on, I think, from mid July through January 18th. So it was a
Okay.
long run for me. It was over 6 months,
And
or
how,
just
I
about
mean,
6 months.
how important, I mean, just in general, like how important is it to have those long-standing series like this? You know, what does it mean for the community to have those?
Right, right. It is it is so important for New Mexico and specifically Albuquerque to have a production that runs that long because so much of the actual fabrication of sets and design of, like I said, for like that particular show was farmed out to local vendors, and all the way down to like our t-shirt guy. We have a guy that we use for our t-shirts here at the coffee shop, and we just loaded him with all of the merch for the music festival. And for him,
Mhm.
that's probably 2 years worth of income for him, to do that big of a show, for just print jobs, right? But there's also, the big banners that we had printed. Dr. Vinyl is a company that we use all the time in film, and that keeps them going. The police cars they do the skins for. I mean, I can just go on and on the number of vendors in Albuquerque that we give work to. And it's so important. I don't think people realize some of these companies are just, sort of struggling. And then we come in and we give them 3 months worth of work, and it sets their whole year up, and it's, it's just hard to comprehend that until you actually see the amount of work that goes out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been around it for 20 years,
Yeah,
writing about it. So I've seen it. I've seen the how it can change someone's trajectory, you know,
absolutely.
whether it's personal or professional, business or as an actor, it changes it. It changes it a
Absolutely.
lot. And what was it like for you to I guess just because you have to create this world, and this world already is existing, and you're continuing it. What is that like to actually do it, to actually just design it and come up with, okay, this is a festival I'm designing.
Yeah.
What would be cool? What would be cool? Does it fit in this world? You
Yeah.
know?
You mean the process itself?
Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
process.
Um, my direct boss, other than the showrunner, is the production designer of the
Mhm.
show. And his responsibility, obviously, is to determine the entire look of everything and then get approval from the showrunner and director. So I actually got to work with a friend of mine named Keith Neely, who worked here years ago on a really great little sci-fi limited series called The Lost Room, which was an incredibly
Mhm.
cool sci-fi little series.
Yep.
But I met him, worked with him on that, and then I got to work with him on a couple of shows when he was in LA. But he came back for Ransom Canyon, and we always had this great give and take of coming up with ideas. He would say, "Hey, I'm thinking something like this," and I'd be like, "Okay," and I'd go in my office and I'd work on it for half a day or so, and I'd give him 4 or 5 different versions of kind of what I thought he was talking about, and he was just great. He was so gracious. He was just be like, "Oh, I like this element. I like this element. Can we make these kind of come together and let's try and refine it a little bit?" And we would spend days or maybe a couple weeks refining things and coming up with things that he would really relate to, and then he would take those to the director or the showrunner and say, "Hey, this is kind of what we're thinking." And I would say 9 times out of 10 we were right there, like we were super close, and we just had to refine a couple little things and it was good to go. But when you can work with people like that just kind of you're on the same page with like that, it just makes the whole show go so much smoother, because I have been on the opposite end of that too.
And how would you describe your journey within the film industry here? because I mean, you've worked on every, like you said, you've worked on everything, all sizes of projects. You know,
Yeah.
what has that been like to be part of that evolution and that growth of the
Well, I feel
industry
old
here?
now. I feel old now because I feel like I was pretty young when I started. It's been 30
Yeah.
years, and um, I feel incredibly lucky, honestly.
Hmm.
When you think about being, you know, a graduate of Silver City High School and just dreaming about being either a musician or being working in the entertainment industry, and then to have the actual opportunity to work on things that have been iconic, it's humbling, and it's really like makes me feel like one of the luckiest people that's ever been in the industry, because most of us would never get that opportunity. It's a struggle to
Hmm.
get into the industry, but to get the chance to work with incredible people like Vince Gilligan or April Blair on Ransom Canyon, or any of the people that worked on Longmire. It's I'm fortunate, and I think New Mexico should feel very fortunate that we've been able to draw those kinds of projects in here, and I really wish we could get more.
Hmm. And how does it feel? I mean, we know that it's been slow. It's slower than normal. I
Yeah,
guess how New Mexicans are resilient, first off. They're resilient.
they are. Yeah.
Um, what advice or what advice would you have for them, or just people? I mean, you've been you've been in it for a while, but someone coming up, you know, to not get discouraged because there are ebbs and flows to it all.
Yeah.
You know?
You know what I would say, honestly, and this is something that I feel strongly about. I feel like if it's something that you really want to do, then just do it, even if it's not on the scale of a Netflix or a Warner Brothers or a Paramount. Start making independent films. Find somebody who's doing indie projects. Do graphics for them if you're talking about graphic design. Ask if you can do sound, if it's sound that you want to do. Just get involved, because at some point the pendulum swings back. It's going to happen. So just keep refining your craft, because when you do get the chance, you have to be ready for it, because it's so I don't want to say cutthroat, but it is difficult to get your foot in the door. So when you do get that chance, you got to be ready for it. You got to know what you're doing. You got to know your craft, and all of the stuff that you can do that's just indie film stuff or YouTube stuff or TikTok stuff. It's going to help you in the long run. I mean that's what I came out of. I was doing graphic design for a studio and or a recording studio, just doing album covers and doing a magazine, and I worked at the Daily Lobo, and all of those things led me to be prepared when I did get the chance, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Okay. And what are some of the projects that you've worked on
Film
here?
projects? Oh
Yeah,
my
film
God.
projects.
I think the last time I looked, there was like 45 or 50 entries on my IMDb, which is just blows my mind because it seems like it's gone by so fast. But the biggest obviously being Breaking Bad, In Plain
Mhm.
Sight, In the Valley of the Law, which was nominated for an Academy Award, Longmire. Oh my gosh, and then there's so many. I'm not to try and
Yeah.
sound arrogant, but it's hard for me to remember all of them. Everything from TV series to feature film stuff. 2 years ago, we did a really small sci-fi sort of low budget project for Kevin Hart's Heartbeat Productions, and that was one of the funnest projects I've done. And it was just kind of a low budget alien film that called Xeno that I just had a great time on. I actually got to art direct that, and I don't art direct a lot because I enjoy the creative process of graphic design more and set design. But every once in a while, a small project where I can art direct is a lot of fun. And that was fun. We got to go out into the desert and create, a crash site for an alien, and it
Mhm.
was just it was a lot of fun. So, gosh, I don't know, Adrian. There's a lot of stuff that I've worked on.
Yeah, no. And how does it feel? I mean, when you're working on it, you don't think of the bigger picture. You know,
Mhm.
it's just this is my task for the next 4 weeks, and then I have another task. But when it all comes together, what is it? Is it ever lost on you what you are creating and being a part of with it with every project? Because I mean, the world sees it, sees your
Yeah,
work. And you
Yeah.
don't go in thinking that like, oh wow, this, I'm going to have 10 million people viewing this. You're just doing your job. And then when it comes to it, boom.
Yeah. Um, at the time, it, it's a job, right? Like you're just
Mhm.
trying to get your job done well. And there's so much pressure because there's these 10 and 12-hour days, and you're so in it that you really don't think about what is it going to look like when it's all done? How is it going to be received when it's all done? I think the only one that was really weighed sort of heavily while we were doing it was Breaking Bad, because when I tell this story all the time, when I read the script for the pilot, I was like, "There's no way, there's no way."
Yeah.
Teacher doing meth. I mean, it just seems so far fetched. I just didn't think it was gonna take. And then by season 3, I'm like, "Holy crap!" We're like, running things through Vince Gilligan, design stuff, and he's aware of how big it is already, and he's very concerned that he's meticulous. He's meticulous about what he wants.
Mhm.
And that was the only show I think where I felt real pressure about the outcome of it long term, like where it weighed on me. Almost everything else, you feel like you're in a routine, and you know what you're doing, and the design's coming along, and the show, however it gets, reviewed or accepted, it's kind of out of your hands. But that one particularly, we knew that we had to keep it on track.
Yeah, no, because I mean, you just mentioning like two of them, what put Albuquerque on the map, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I remember that too. I remember Ann Lerner, kind of pushing the mayor to be like, you should let this happen because cops had just ended. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
they were
yeah,
like, we want to get away from that stuff. And I remember that.
exactly.
Like, she's like, let's just give it a try, and they were concerned. Teacher making meth,
Yeah.
selling meth. Yeah. So I
No,
get
I,
I
I
get that.
I remember. I just remember reading it and thinking, this is crazy stuff. I don't know about this, but obviously I was way wrong. And it did put Albuquerque on the map for film.
Mhm. And for you looking back on 30 years, like you said, a lot of people don't get 30-year careers, you
No,
know,
no.
and looking back on it, how has your love for what you do evolved as you've grown as a human too,
Hmm.
you know, starting off
Yeah.
as that young, I'll do it. And now you're like, you're the veteran now. When you
You
think
know,
about it. Yeah.
I am, and it's a little, I don't know. I get a little, I don't want to say sad, but a little reminiscent about it. Like I think I wish I could have appreciated it more when I started. You know what I mean? Like I
Mhm.
just didn't know. I didn't know how long it was going to last. I didn't know if it would last. I didn't know if I was like a one and done thing. I could have never anticipated such a long stretch, such a fun career. And now I look back on it, and it's like with all things, right? When you get older, you're just like, wow, I wish I'd appreciated it more when I was there. But I am very proud of the things that I've done. Like I'm very happy with them. There's a few things I wish I'd have done better. When I did the Better Call Saul logo for Breaking Bad, it was so fast that I wish I could have had more time to make it better. And
Mhm.
then it became its own iconic thing. And it's like, oh man, that was like such a fast thing. I wish I could have really finessed that, and I would have done something totally different. But you
Yeah.
don't know in the moment. But I think, as looking back on all of it, on the whole career, man, I'm super lucky. I said it earlier. I
Mhm.
don't think I could have imagined the things that I've been able to do, and the people I've been able to meet, and the projects that will be here long after I'm gone. You know what I mean? Like there'll be
Mhm.
iconic things like Breaking Bad or Longmire. Longmire's been over for, I think it's like 5 or 6 years now, and they still have Longmire days in Wyoming. And
Yeah.
there's
They
still
just had it.
yeah, exactly. There's still a fan base for it. It helps that there was a book, series, but still, people still send me messages, and they're like, "Hey, is there going to be another season? Are they going to do a movie?" There was a rumor there was going to be a movie for the longest time, and it's like, I don't know that stuff. I'm just
Yeah.
designing stuff, but I wish.
Yeah. You're like, when they call me, yeah, I'll know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And what do you think as a film community? we can all do to keep supporting the film industry, to keep, because yeah, I mean, like we said, it's a lot a lot slower, but
Yeah,
what can we all do to pull together to keep, to keep that foundation that has been built for 20 plus years
yeah.
together.
Well, I mean, the most obvious thing, right, is to watch these programs. I mean, it may not be your cup of tea. You may not like, romantic westerns, modern westerns, but it's filmed here. It keeps people employed. You know, just watch it. Support it, spread the word, share it, because unless the ratings are there for these programs, it's just not going to come back. And it's a bummer because a lot of stuff takes some time to grow. Like one season sometimes doesn't make a hit series. I don't think the
Yeah.
first season of Breaking Bad was really that big. It took a couple of seasons, right? So when I see something like Burroughs, which kind of bums me out because I really enjoyed that. And I could see out my window at Netflix, I could see their set over there, the little housing, the community. I thought, well, that's a whole that's a whole industry of people that's out of a job now when it didn't get renewed, which is really a bummer, and that one I know wasn't particularly about the ratings because it actually had some pretty decent viewership. I think it was just an expensive film or TV show to produce, but if we want to keep those coming back, we got to be watching them. We got to be
Mm-hmm.
spreading the word, and we got to be encouraging, people that we know to support it in that way. And it's all eyes. Unfortunately, it's all ratings. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, because I can tell you, Breaking Bad didn't cross the million viewership mark until season three.
Right.
They
Right.
were stuck at like 600,000 watching, and
Yeah.
that's time to organically grow. You
Yeah.
know,
Imagine if they'd have pulled the plug after season one.
yeah, yeah.
Crazy, right?
Hmm. And it's only because it was on AMC. It was on a
Right.
smaller network. It was
Right.
on a smaller network because other than that, if you go below a million, you're automatically axed on a network.
Right.
On a bigger network. Yeah.
And I feel it's harder now. I feel like attention span is so much shorter now that things have to resonate very quickly, or
Hmm.
or they just move on, which is really unfortunate. And being from my generation, we grew up watching really slow rolling programs. It took a while to build into something, whether it was TV or film, you know, it took a while to build, and there was a lot of character development, there was a lot of story development. It's not like that now it's like if you don't catch somebody's attention right away. That's why TikTok's so big, right? Because they're like 30-second long clips, and that's all the attention span most the younger generation have for it. So it's a tricky time. It's a really tricky time.
Hmm. And what was one of the most for you for this season, for season two of Ransom Canyon, was one of the most memorable moments for you?
Mm. I'm going to probably have to say that it's the big music festival, just because it
Uh-huh.
was so big and it was so many moving parts, and it was big names performing, and it was just cool. It was like out in the back lot and watching the construction go together for the whole stage and all of the booths, and it took so much of our time in the art department that it was kind of like the most memorable thing for us.
Hmm. Wonderful. No, those are the questions that I had, and I wanted to ask, do you have any do you have any photos that you would like to share? I have stuff from Netflix,
Yeah.
from the thing, but like stuff that we you'd like to share that we can cull together to help get people to watch and
Yeah,
support.
I do. I got like some behind the scenes stuff. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like
yeah, because I
construction.
know you can. I know you can share them now because
Yeah,
it's out.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll get you some. I've got some cool
No,
stuff.
that'd
I
be
got like
great.
early iterations of like the No Place Like Home poster. You know what I mean? Where it was
Mhm.
like hand drawn stuff and then sets and some things like that. Some of the like the bar, the dive bar stuff is kind of cool. Yeah, I got some stuff I can send you.
Okay. No, I'll have to go by and see you and get some coffee,
Yeah, dude, for sure,
and
man.
we could talk there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. No, thank you so much for taking the time and congratulations. I know I always tell people it's all magic, the hard work that we see. I said we watch it in awe and I'm like, that's hours and hours and hours and months of hard work, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
so
And then there's all the stuff that never makes it, right?
yeah.
Like I watched the Xeno um, little sci-fi thing for the first time last month after it released, and there was a whole scene that in a set that we had built, and it wasn't in there, and I was like, oh man, that was like a whole like couple of weeks of work that just didn't even make it, you know. But that's how it goes sometimes.
And you didn't go through you didn't in your journey you weren't part of like the FCAT program, right? Like a training up or no?
Um, no, as a matter of fact, I did when I joined the Art Directors Guild
Hmm.
in LA. When I was a graphic designer in Local 480 here, I did
Hmm.
go through the FCAP program to get into the Art Directors Guild. Yeah, thanks
Okay.
for reminding me about that. That was a long time ago.
No, I just wondered because that's the program. I mean, we still run that program, and it's kind of
Yeah,
like it's your proof, how
yeah, yeah,
someone gets trained up, and
exactly.
you know,
Yeah, that's how I got in the program.
very cool. No,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, man. Anytime. I love talking to you, and you do
Okay.
such cool stuff, and you're always supporting us. Seriously, I really appreciate it.
Of course. No, thank you again, and I'll
Yeah.
be around. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, hit
Thank you,
me up
sir.
anytime, man. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.